In this video I'm going to be going into weapons and examples of using objects and overriding methods within objects. So for a weapon, defined in code is just something with attributes which apply to pretty much every weapon. This includes damage, in this case a drop effect for the weapon, the equipped version of the model that represents the weapon, and various methods which can be used if needed by different weapons. So to override a method, we need to mark it as virtual. So what this means is this is a method. If we have another object, in this case base gun, that inherits from weapon, we can choose to override it. So what that means is I've marked this as public override void start. So it looks similar, let me bring them side by side, as public virtual void start. So what this does is, depending on the game object, so a game object in Unity, when the scene loads, it finds all mono behaviors, which what the weapon defines from, and calls a method called start. So this is to find components and set initial states. So in this case, for the weapon, we want to find the drop effect, the rigid body, and the equipped weapon model. And so then we can explicitly say what we want to do when the game starts. But with a base gun, we might need to get other components which start. But because the base gun inherits from weapon, we can't say to the weapon, hey, find the gunfire sound effects, because with the weapon, it doesn't know what it's being inherited to. So if a weapon was a sword, we can't exactly say, oh, get the gunfire sound effects, because it's not applicable in that case. So we override it. So Unity skips this one and jumps to this start, because this is the most higher up start. But because we've overridden it, here, we've marked it as overridden, override, and virtual, so we can say, okay, do you know the class that we inherited from? I want to call that version of start as well. So we call that version of start, which links back over to here, so it gets all of these components and sets the initial state, and then it goes, oh, on top of that, this is the base gun, we want to get the fire sound effects as well. And everybody is happy, including the compiler. So, and we can take this one step further. We can override methods named tagged with override. So a pistol derives from base gun, and we want to override the base gun version of start. Why do we want to do that? Because we need to set other states and find other components. So in this case, we want to define the fire type as semi-auto, so we have to click for every time we want to fire a bullet. And also we want to find the muzzle of the gun, so we know where to fire the bullets from. So, but before that, we still want to get everything before then, such as the gunfire sound effects. So if I hold Control and click on Start, it takes me to what it overrides. So it overrides into here, and this overrides back over into weapon. So even though this pistol version of start is called first, it calls the base gun's version of start before it finds its other stuff, but the base gun version of start calls the weapon's version of start before it gets its stuff. So it's going back down to the lowest common denominator, then working its way back up again to make sure everything's in place and ready for use. So not everything marked virtual has to be overridden. So in this case, on trigger enter, this is something which is detects collision with the weapon. So if the weapon's empty and hits the floor, it destroys itself. If it collides with the player, it picks it up. And if it collides with the floor after it's been dropped, it enables the drop effect. So, but not every weapon needs to override this. It's only ever if a special use case is needed. So if it was a grenade, for start, and the pin's been pulled, it's been thrown, it collides with the floor, we might want it to explode straight away. So in this case we wouldn't override, we would override virtual, and not call back to the previous version of onTriggerEnter. So this becomes essentially dead code within just that one inheritance. And same with drop. Things might be dropped differently per weapon, so it's best to mark it as virtual in case you want to extend the base version of drop. So if you need, like when something collides, you need something a bit extra, or you don't want to call it at all, or get rid of what this does, that's a possibility as well. So for how that weapon actually works, pretty much just a raycast. So first thing other thing, weapon, it has an empty attack method. So if nothing inherits from it, it's just essentially a blank weapon and nothing really happens. Because attacks are different for, let's say, swords and guns. So in this case, it's attack. We need to find a fire type, which we found all the way up into the pistol. So we know that's going to be in place. And then this just separates semi-auto fire from auto fire. And this is the main class. It shoots a raycast, fires a sound effect, does some stat things, reduces ammo, applies damage if it hits anything that can be damaged. All very standard. And also, with the weapons, we can pick up ammo from other dropped weapons. So this is called when we pick up a weapon, which is called in the base weapon onTriggerEnter. So whenever the weapon, so in this case it could be any weapon, collides with the player, so it doesn't matter if it's a grenade, if it's a gun, if it's a sword, because they all essentially are a weapon, they all have the same attributes, we all want them to be picked up by the player. So with this, it's picked up. Sorry, to bring it over here. It's picked up. If it's the current weapon, this is just getting rid of a bug. Yeah, so if we're holding a weapon, we want to make sure the weapon that we're holding is the same type of weapon that we've collided with, and if it is, then we can take the ammo. And then this is just setting some positions, some rotations, so if we do pick it up from when we have nothing, we want to make sure everything's in the right place and it looks good. And also it does some other things like displaying certain UI elements depending on ammo and possibly even the ammo type. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video I'm going to go into about drop effects. So as we saw here, I haven't really touched it, but the next video I'm going to be going into that.